Hey, Uncle Jim. Welcome to my little demo of the thing that I built. Uh, so this is the sort of the project scheduling sort of section of this web application that I'm building. So my client Peregrine, um, they are managing their um, sort of build schedule. They call it a sequence list on a spreadsheet. And so I've mimicked that here. Um, there's another mode to this screen that is more like what you showed me, which is the rows of dates across the top and what I call the build departments along the side. So um, first of all, I'm interested to get your input just as far as terminology. Um, you know, it's not my forte, but I don't know if build department is the best way to describe this. But basically, what I call the build department is the department that's doing a particular type of building, right? So for these guys, they have millwork, they have plastic signage, upholstery, they have metal. Um, I used to have a CNC section in here as well, but it's just at a department that's doing a particular type of work. So so for the purposes of managing the schedule and to be able to see how much work sort of each build department has, there's a few important pieces of information. So for a particular task, so this task millwork package Meta Cannabis Company, yeah, this is a project for cannabis company in Kamloops. Um, we need to identify the build department. So, for example, millwork. Um, and then we would enter a schedule date. So the schedule date is when does this work scheduled to begin? So we would just select a date, and um, and that would set millwork has to start working on this task on the 17th of July. Um, there's also the required completion date. So we can set that to like the 22nd of July. And what the system will do is it'll give you some flags if you're getting a little too close to your required completion date and you haven't finished it yet. Um, so there's a bunch of other information in here that they use to manage their projects and their tasks, like type. They want to know whether it's a contract. I'm not really sure what all this stuff is. Process, prototype, I guess, RW. All of these different columns are can be customized by whatever customer is using this. So they use type, size, other things like PM, which is project manager, LH, which is lead hand. Those are just columns that they've added to this grid. A different customer would put in their own columns here, so it's all customizable. Um, so one of the things that they often have to do is for a particular task like this millwork um, task, it might be a little bit too broad and they need to break it down into a subtask. So we're able to do that. We click this little button here and we create a subtask. So when that's done, it gives it the exact same task name, but it gives it a dot one. So if we created another subtask here, it would be Q 1086101.2.3.4, etc. And here you can see, so this field is days to required completion date. So I set the required completion date to the 22nd of July. It's now, whatever it is, the 27th. So it's saying, hey, we're 5 days over. So what's nice about this is you're able to use these sorting icons up here to sort ascending or descending to see what ones are coming close, what ones are overdue, etc. And so we can delete the subtask. One other thing that I've done on here is created the ability to have prerequisites. So it might be that a certain task has to be done before you can move on to the next task. And it's handy to be able to see that visually. So for example, if I wanted to make these two, O2 and O3, prerequisite of 01, so I could just click them. And I go to my handy little button here, and I set them as prerequisites. It just does a little confirmation. And now you see this one is turned red. So what that means is it's a different color because it has prerequisites, but those prerequisites are not complete. So that tells you, hey, we can't start on this thing. So if I go to the O2 and O3 and I actually mark them as complete, I give them a completion date. So I'll give that one completion date on the 15th, and this one on the 17th. And then we go back here. You can see it's changed color to blue. So the blue means it has prerequisites, but they're all complete, so you don't have to worry. You can start working on this thing. What else can I show you? So from this handy little button, we created a subtask. We set prerequisites, and you can add prerequisites and remove them, and just show what prerequisites a particular item has. You can also go open the task. So when you open the task, you see the task name, you see the description. You can see and modify the estimated hours. The actual hours come in through the time recording system. And you can, in this section here, add or view attachments. So if you have PDF documents or images or whatever that are associated to this, you can drag them into the square and they'll get attached. And then, well, we can just do an example here. So now this guy is attached. We can rename it if we want. And then when we open it, it'll just show up over here. It's just a little sample report of mine. So that's the task. We can also look at the project. And so the project itself has a start date, has an estimated completion date. Here's the total estimated hours for all of the subtasks of this guy. So if they're using the time recording system, they can look at their actual hours here versus their estimated hours. And the system will identify when your hours are getting close to being complete. So you can get a little bit of a heads up. Yeah, so that's basically it. I mean, this allows you to search each column. So if we type in millwork, then it'll just bring up all the millwork ones. So each of these columns is sortable. So you can just see what you're interested in. Now we'll go to the timeline view, which is basically your method, which frankly I like better. So if we click over here, we'll go to this grid. So this is kind of like your grid. So we have the days, and so this grid allows you can view this by day. If we go up here and change it to week, so now we have it by week: July 21st, July 28th, August 4th, etc. We can even go by month and by year. So you can summarize your information and look at it however you like. So if we go back to day, so we can see we set a department and a schedule date for one of these items. So it's showing up here. July 27th, we're scheduled to start this task in millwork. And over here on the left side, these are all the tasks that you haven't assigned anywhere yet. So we can sort it here. So let's say we wanted to go with number 4. We can bring that and just drop it in here. So now that means we're going to install is a bad one. Let's move it up to design. So task number 4, we're going to start the design on July 28th, which kind of doesn't make sense. You wouldn't do design before you do the first one. But anyway, we're just fooling around. So you can see there's a couple of little what I call badges here. And let me zoom in a little bit. So T represents time. And what this means is you've used 0% of your estimated hours. So as time gets allocated to this thing, this percentage will change. It might be 50%, 60%, 70%. And once it gets to a certain range, like 80%, this is going to turn orange as a warning. And once you're over, this will turn red. So when you're looking at this grid visually, you can look at all the orange ones, all the red ones, and quickly sort of go and be able to identify the ones that could be problems. Um, the S stands for um, sort of where you stand in your schedule. So here we can see S5. Um, that means your required completion date. You've got 5 days to finish this thing. And as this gets closer, it goes 4, 3, 2, 1. Once you get to a certain range, 2 days, 1 day, etc., this will turn orange and red as well. So again, you can have a visual representation of, oh my God, we're getting close to our scheduled completion dates on these guys. Um, how close are we? Are we going to be able to uh, meet that deadline? And this is a question that I had for you. I'm not really sure how to define both with time and with sort of your delivery schedule or your completion schedule. Um, when do we start flagging that this is in danger? So, for example, if you've got a task that's only going to take 2 hours, well, you don't need to flag anything 3 days out or 5 days out or a week out because it's only going to take 2 hours. So, when you flag a small project, will be different from when you flag a large project. So if you have a project that's going to take 1,000 hours and you've only got 5 days left, well, you're in trouble. So I'm sort of struggling on figuring out how to best define that. It might be that the user has to define that themselves for each project because it really depends on the capacity of building, their build process, their manufacturing. If they can if they've got 200 hours in a day to work on a particular man hours to work on a day to work on a particular project versus 20 hours to work on a particular man project, well, that changes the calculations of when do you flag something as being in danger of being either over budget or off schedule. So yeah, if you have any ideas or advice on that, I'm listening. Um, so from this view, again, you're able to sort of drill down and get details of the project. So if you double click on one of these um, boxes, you'll see the task number. You'll see a description of the task. It'll show you your estimated hours versus your actual hours. And from here, again, you can open the project, you can open the task, and you can open the schedule record, which is basically the same information that was on that previous screen. So you can go in here and update things. You can change an estimate or change a completion date, or make a completion date, etc. Yeah, so that's kind of where I am right now. Um, One thing I should say, so what this does, um, these buttons over here will allow you to go to the next sort of set of data. So if I click that, I go 14 days ahead and see the grid um, in the future. And then this will let me go back to the past, or not to the past, but sort of left in the timeline. It'll never let you go into the history. So it's always as of today. Um, I think that's okay. I don't know. I don't know if you would ever want to need to go back and see what happened in June or April or whatever. I always limit it to you start with today, and you can see forward. And what will happen tomorrow when you open this thing? This will automatically get moved here. So anything that's not complete in the past will get pushed forward to the next day. So over time, your current day will just keep building out. There'll be more and more and more stuff in there. So you can drop a whole bunch of stuff into these different days. and gradually they'll just build and build and build until they're complete. And once they're complete, they drop off of here. Um, so here's our build departments over here, right? Contract design, install, metal, etc. And here are our tasks over here. And that's kind of it. Oh, and you can hide that so you can get a full screen view. So yeah, I guess if you have any feedback on say terminology, build department, etc., or any insight into how did you guys identify whether you were getting close to being over budget, um, or having your completion timeline in jeopardy, based on the size of the project, um, and the complexity of the project. Uh, my sense is that we might have to get the users to enter that information of when they want to be identified when something's getting close to being over budget or out of time by project, versus somehow the magical computer figuring out based on the size of the project, when a good time is to tell you that you're in jeopardy. So yeah, here you can see we're 6 days over on this guy. It's supposed to be done 6 days ago. All right, there it is in all its glory. Yeah, so it's still a work in progress, but it's coming along, and I think it's kind of a useful tool. But I'd love to hear your feedback. Cheers.